Alright, let's talk about some more science fiction. All that's not on those shelves. These would be the last looked at paperbacks, sci-fi paperbacks. I'm thinking now at the end of this, I'm going to do some individual author videos from the sci-fi collection too, which will be a little redundant because it'll consist entirely of books we've already looked at. However, grouped differently. I kind of like doing that with those literary ones before just because of how the sections were. Some of those had some repetition. I love a title. If I had had this when I wrote my essay that was all book titles, I would definitely have used this, but I think this is a recent get. City outside the world. Sometimes I feel like that's where I live. The Invisible Man on the Last Continent. Hey, that was some accidental poetry in the book titles. That happens. Oh, for real. Guess I have 2 Invisible Mans. Hey, that's cool. I'll give one of these away. That is a cool story. Somehow I didn't have this one around as much maybe as a kid, and so I didn't read it as much as other H.G. Wells. Though I do remember reading this 3 or 4 times. I think people's youthful reading lives are really interesting, you know? I mean, that's a place where your reading direction of your reading life can really go right or wrong. I mean, what do you do if you're just shoved dreck your whole time growing up reading that stuff? I mean, I'm very subjective about art and literature. I can find value in just about anything using my personal lens that I call the perfection lens. Every work offers perfect insight into its creator and into the society from which it came. Or what did I say? The world from which it came. So, like, you can read the worst thing, you know, just genre stuff, you know, churned out for filthy lucre. And you can find something profound there. I don't know. I still tinker with this idea, but it's a useful way for me, and it's made me, like, become appreciative of everything. Become a major lens in my life, like the one big picture idea. Like, I had one day where I just realized, like, oh, all stories are connected and everything is connected to everything else. I think this was circa 2006 when I was working on my first book, and you know, reading about the local history of a local mountain range gets you into geology and physics and everything. You know, if you realize there's just one story, the story of everything, and there's no optional parts, then, like, everything's interesting. And that can be kind of overwhelming, you know. Didn't Nietzsche say it's exhausting to find everything profound? It's true. But he also said that an intelligent person who encounters a new idea immediately puts that thought in its place as a link in a chain, you know. And if I ever read this one, I don't have much of a memory of it. I might have read it once. Because as a youth, I definitely had an H.G. Wells completist era. I remember reading some obscure stuff from him, like Food of the Gods. Anything I could find through the libraries. Back in ye old pre-internet days, you know, it was hard to find books sometimes. Like, I was always trying to find the book, The Patchwork Girl of Oz. I was like, why is that so hard to find? Or no, it was The Tin Woodman of Oz. That was which one it was. And now it's quite common, thanks to the 1980s Lester Del Rey paperback series and the internet. But when I was in Vienna, Austria, that was like the one book that was missing from the original Elfhang Baum 14-book series. They had, like, original old editions that had been taped up and, like, had the binding repaired a couple of times that were just still in circulation in the 80s. They were from, like, the early 1900s. So those were the Oz books that I read there a lot. And some of the Del Rey reprints, too. Those were also around and have those beautiful covers. These are the Del Rey reprints. Oh, great. Yeah, I'm noticing I'm damaging books more because I'm handling books more with this channel. Books are meant to just be left on a shelf, honestly, for a lot of their lives. I'm like, yeah. The Oz books went on for like 40 books, but with a different writer, Ruth Plumley Thompson. The canon I really care about is just the original Baum ones. And even that's a ragged canon with some weird outliers that we may or may not still have, like The Woggle Bug of Oz or Visitors from Oz. What do you think, Squirrel? Squirrel, are you happy we let that cat out? Oh yeah, the stray no longer lives here. But I am still going to try to find her a home. It was just untenable. She wouldn't stop yelling. And I'm going to keep feeding her on the porch. I have a little warm box out there. So if anyone wants that little black and white cat, I'll help you get it. And so will these cats. I think I need to get them like a wheel to run on or something. Or maybe start letting them out. I don't know. There, get a little chunk. Yeah, I think I got rid of all those kind of lame side Oz ones. Back from a more completist era. The only oversized Oz I have now is that annotated Wizard of Oz. And those 2 Marvel adaptations from Scotty Young. Okay, why are we going off about Oz? So I'm going to put all the H.G. Wells together. And all the Zelazny. I haven't read this one, but cool. I love that cover. That's a great cover. That should totally be a poster. Roger Zelazny is cool. I'm realizing I really like that guy. Great writer. I put him at the top with sci-fi writers. I bet I've read 10 of his books and liked them all. This is an incredible cover. Look at this amazing book. The invaders came to conquer or destroy man's final refuge on Earth. The last continent. Look at this cover. It looks like a Carlos Castaneda cover or something. It was forbidden to enter the tower. I love that. Oh my gosh. I want posters of both sides of this book. The law had been handed down from time beyond man's memory, and none who broke it had ever survived. From the tower flowed the energy and intelligence that kept alive the city of Neulantis, the sole vestige of civilization left on Earth. Wow. It was forbidden to enter the tower. Like, I want to make a shirt with that on it. That's incredible. I seriously am going to look into that, like doing merch from some of the cool old book covers and stuff that I encounter in this collection. They're probably like just drifting in a copyright free zone, you know? At least at the level I'd be making anything, it'd be like a zine, you know? And I'm not going to be like, hashtag help me find this copyright holder. No, I'm just kidding. Riker could die in the ruins of Mars or pass beyond the crystal. Lynn Carter. Oh, well, they're riding like a monster. I just noticed it. That's cool. Mars, the skull of a planet picked clean by the wind of time. Wow, like set in a fantasy story on Mars. I guess that goes back to like John Carter on Mars. This looks like nothing I've ever read, or not much of anyway. Oh wow. Also by Lynn Carter, Thongor in the Dragon City. Thongor fights the pirates of Tarakas. Thongor and the Wizard of Lemuria. Okay, some freaky fantasy. Like An Amazing Object as a book, a great title, and somewhat intriguing premise, though outside my usual reading world. I'm intrigued. Possibly read sometime. Okay, this is not sci-fi, but it's like pulp, and it didn't seem to fit into the literary paperback shelf anymore, especially with doing the paperback project, reading all those. Like if I could choose between this and like an actually good classic that better belongs on the shelf, I'm choosing the good classic. You know, this will probably be interesting. I got it because it's about the Florida Everglades, and I've walked across the Florida Everglades as part of a walk across the country in another lifetime. Back in 2001, 24 years ago. Crazy. A halcyon memory. The glades are amazing. In the script I wrote about that hike, I wrote a 7-episode miniseries script that's also going to be a chapter in my book, my 2-volume maximalist work. In that script, when the hikers are walking through the Everglades, it's a music montage set to Brian Eno's An Ending Ascent, which, if you know that song, you know, super peaceful, chill, mystical, another wavelength entirely. But the Everglades are a great setting. This is probably some macho war book that would be a real chore to read, but I might still read it sometime. It's a pretty okay cover. It's interesting. At least it's not just a picture of somebody. This eye-patched character's mouth is eclipsed by a swamp scene. And there's a cutout of shoulders shooting in front of him. Is that a woman posing in the middle? Oh my gosh. This book. Yeah, when I was writing that miniseries script, I just got so many books about all the places that we had hiked through. I read Swamplandia when I was writing the Florida section to just kind of get the vibe of it. She really describes Florida well in that book. And that was very helpful. Just reminded me of things like details that are different, you know, like don't forget to mention the knobby knees of cypress trees, you know, or the Spanish moss hanging down, or the, you know, this or that phenomenon. The alligators jumping into the water along the canals. And, you know, as a writer, you always want to see, yeah, how are the people approaching this same setting if I'm using a setting? I think I acquired this during that same time. This is also about the Everglades. Violence, passion, and murder in the savage swamplands of Florida. The final challenge. He had collided with death before. Yeah, this got moved out of the that paperback shelf in the other room too. So now it's like just kind of a weird genre book I have that I want to keep because of the setting. And I mean, these are kind of cool looking books, both of them. They're kind of epic. I could see displaying them, but or I don't know. Maybe I'll just get rid of pulp books like that and not collect that kind. Okay, check this out. I have 3 paperback copies of 1984 from George Orwell. They're all kind of cool. I kind of want to turn them into like art, you know, like Mod Podge them and glue them to a board or something. Kind of a cool looking stained board with nice edges. But then again, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of ruthless with books sometimes. I recognize that just entropy is built into book ownership. They fall apart. That said, when I was a wilderness counselor this last summer, one of the trekkers would buy all these old books at thrift stores, and she'd mark them up with pen, and it was killing me. And I'm like, well, don't have to, you know, accelerate entropy to that degree. She was dog-earing them too. I'm like, you gotta, you know, that's situational behavior, I feel like. But I wouldn't do it to old, nice books, you know. This is a pretty intense book. I think it's right in a lot of ways. So is Brave New World. Each is right and wrong. I mean, I don't know. There surely are or have been authoritarian governments like the one described here. But I think a lot of what we see in oppression is more the bread and circuses style that is described in Brave New World. You know, this seems like a lot of work with extra police needed for 1984's reality. Everything is illegal. All sex is illegal. I mean, you know, that's so unlikely. You know, yeah, there's messed up authoritarian societies, but Brave New World sedating the populace with drugs and entertainment seems, while their rights are being taken away and their lifespans whittle ever down. But what Orwell did get right, I think, is the whole surveillance thing and misinformation, many elements. Definitely a memorable book. It's a very cynical book. I used to want to write something called Catch-22-84 that would mash Catch-22 and 1984 up in like a Star Wars type future. Yossarian's peril getting as futile as the main character in 1984's. All in an exotic alien setting. I don't know. A good dystopian book is good once in a while. 84 is a weird one. You know, the only movie the CIA ever produced on the record, they've made a bunch, is the adaptation of Animal Farm. That's so creepy. Like, okay, thanks for making me mistrust Animal Farm. I mean, Orwell was, you know, he didn't always consistently apply his ideologies. I read a lot of Orwell. I read all his essay collections. There were a couple of nice editions out a while ago. And I was like, man, what a powerful thinker. He's somebody like Aldo Leopold who had a moment of clarity after being horrible. Like he was working for colonist England in India, oppressing with the other soldiers, and saw somebody hanged for some nonsense and was like, ugh, I can't support this anymore. But I heard he was turning in communists like while he was working on this. So I still think collectivism of some sort is the way to go. I mean, capitalism is leaving a lot of people hurting. It's not the blueprint for a perfect planet, people. But Marx himself believed that it might be a necessary step on the way to more collectivist thinking, what he called socialism. This book is so cool looking, dang. Wow. An Alfred Hitchcock movie poster, so. 1984. David Bowie was going to do a musical in 1984, and he did a few songs for it. It was the 1961 edition. I put this in a trilogy with Brave New World from Aldous Huxley and We from Yevgeny Zemarev, I think. Famous novel of life in the future. Yeah, I love books that blur the line between literature and genre. Which one will you be in the year 1984? Proletarian, police guard, party member, male. Wow. Unbelievable. You'll feel differently after you've read this best-selling book of forbidden love and terror in a world many of us may live to see. George Orwell was born in 1903 and died in 1950. That's quite a statement. Many of us may live to see. Nice. I just keep holding on to all three of these. I mean, what if I read all three at once? What kind of weird experience would that be to my brain? Like read one page in one, then skip over to the other. Read one page in the other. It would be like Tommy Wiseau filming The Room in digital and film. Why did this person do that? My big problem with Poul Anderson is, how do I say this guy's name? A novel by Hugo and Nebula Award-winning Poul Anderson, The Winter of the World. Oh, that's great. Civilization collapsing beneath glaciers. Time of chaos. New and perhaps stronger cultures. Neat. Hey, this looks fun. Okay. I think Poul Anderson has some Albuquerque connection too. I know I always say that, but it's really true for a surprising amount of sci-fi writers. Flowers for Algernon. A lot of people read this in school. I think I got this from a high school free pal. About a mentally challenged kid that gets a treatment that results in his brain being like a genius brain. And then it goes away again. I remember it being very provocative and talking about it a lot with people when I read it in school. This may have been a book that I read my very first year of college when I was 17 and 18. Long ago. Before I read The Eden Cycle, this was always the sci-fi book I most wished was true. Journey to the Center of the Earth. What a cool notion. Earth is hollow. There's another world. They journey into the Earth. They find an interior ocean. They find prehistoric. I loved this book as a kid. I feel like the current generations aren't learning to love Wells and Verne in the way that children of the past did. I bet they're still good. Kids just don't have the attention span or the willingness to read old-timey prose anymore. And it's not even that old-timey. It's a rip-roaring adventure yarn. It's inspired many movies in every generation, Yeah. I mean, that they float up on a raft of lava at the end seems unlikely. But, yeah, I used to just be like, I wish this was true. And eagerly read bits of folklore like the green children found in the Pyrenees Mountains of Spain. It said they came from an interior world with a green sun. Or Admiral Byrd supposedly talking to indigenous northern tribes that talked about going farther north to a quieter sun. I'm like, what? Where the grass was green year-round. In Alaska, what? Or the Arctic? This is identical to the copy that was kicking around my family's home as a kid. This might have been it, I don't know. Complete good. There's another Jules Verne, From the Earth to the Moon. Before you do it, you got to dream it. It's super important to have the dream, I think. This book, I was in a writing group with this author's cousin, and she was like a decent friend of mine back in the day. After my first marriage ended, friends get divvied up and so on. But this guy was from Las Cruces, New Mexico also, and he puts a lot of Las Cruces into his stories. It's kind of a cool idea. It would make a good series or something. Pulpy, but like compelling. I think I enjoyed it. I think it had, if I recall correctly, it had a rather M. Night Shyamalan simplicity to its understanding of mental illness. It had one of those villains that's just like, I'm crazy, that's why. Which I guess Shakespeare got away with it with Iago, but, usually you want a little something more than that. Why did I do it? I'm nuts. But I remember that this guy had a contract for this series, and they were sold everywhere, airports, grocery stores, like a totally different market. And then it got canceled, the series, and like the larger arc was left on a cliffhanger. At one point, I had all of them, I think. But I saw this again recently, and I was like, oh, old times. I remember reading that. I can get it again. Maybe someday I'll read it. I don't know. But yeah, with this author's cousin and I, there were a couple of famous writers that lived in Las Cruces at the time. There was a playwright, too, whose name I can never remember. Someone said his house is all just mirrors and awards. He won a, what's the thing? A Tony. He may have won an Oscar for something, too. But anyway, this guy, Steven's cousin, Megan, was in this writing group with me, and we only wrote 100-word flash fiction or nonfiction. And we filled the group with classified ad, a bunch of classified ads. And it was an eccentric cast. It was pretty funny. But I actually learned a lot of writing. We made the stories 100 words exactly instead of 100 words or under, which I'm like, what's that about? That's so random. I think, but it made me think about writing in ways that I've kept with me. Like, for instance, being as concise as possible, but sometimes improving a piece by adding to it. Like, what else is there to say? What else are you not saying? What else could you say? It's not all about contraction. But yeah, I guess in these books, some people have psychic abilities and they can see through the eyes of the dead or somebody else. I can't remember. But yeah, and they'll have this violet tinge to their eyes if they have this kind of a precog. This looks wild. Oh, someone's calling me. I'm not taking your call. I'm filming. I'll call you later. I'm going to try to not take this call so I can keep filming. Brian Aldiss. This looks interesting. It looks like it's a big history.